On today's episode of WatchJRGo, we are back in the shop with the Turbo Miata build, and today, we didn't get it started yesterday, but I bet we get it started today. Honestly, we kind of have to. What is going on, guys? I'm WatchJRGo, and today, like I said, we are back with the Flyin Miata turbo build on this 2015 NC that belongs to my friend Jesse. And of course, he will be leaving in one day to go to Flyin Miata's summer camp in Colorado. So we are under the gun today, and we basically just have to finish cleaning up this table here. And by cleaning it up, I mean, it's all gotta go in the car. So today we are mounting the intercooler, piping all the charge piping and intake piping to the turbo, and then tuning the car and starting it up for the very first time. So it's not a crazy amount of things that are left to do here, but it is quite a bit of work because there's a lot of hole cutting and trimming that we're gonna be doing today. I know yesterday's video I said that welding the cat went wrong, and here's a video of it finished up. It's not the prettiest welding in the world, but it does work perfectly. I had to make the cover photo like the early on picture of the welds because no one's watching this at all. I don't understand. It was doing great, and now all of a sudden it's doing the worst, and it's an incredible amount of work. So it needed at least a slightly better story. And at least, you know, the welding didn't go perfectly since it was stainless and carbon steel. So I had to name it. Here's what went wrong. Anyway, today, hopefully everything goes right. So I went and got the oscillator that we're gonna use to trim up all the plastic that's gonna be squared off. And then I got the big hole saw kit and the drill over here. And I think that should make pretty easy work of relocating the power steering reservoir this way, cutting all of this shield up for the old air box. Now this is a lot of work. Hopefully it doesn't take more than just today. Otherwise it's just gonna turn into a really long night. But let's jump right in here and start putting things on the car. After we take another look at this turbo, I mean, come on. Woo-hoo! It sure is pretty once it's installed. And we are really close to starting it up. Even all the oil stuff's done. So technically, and all the sensors are in, it runs. I was trying to come up with all these different methods of cutting out these little slots that we need to make and, you know, trimming all this. And I was like, well, I guess we'll use the rotary tool. I wish we had a smaller one. You know, I have the Milwaukee one, but I thought about it and I was like, hold on a minute. These are straight cuts. Just use the oscillator. I know it might be annoying on video, but this stuff will take literally seconds. So yeah, if you want to know the fastest way to do this, get out your oscillating tool, borrow one, buy one. There's cheap versions. You can buy, honestly, even non-Milwaukee fuel versions that work great. Or, you know, the Hercules one should be in that ballpark, and this thing's a monster. Trim it out with the oscillator, a couple seconds of work on every single plastic cut. You guys can see I've been cutting away here. Everything is cleaned up now, and this bolt here has to come out still. So this is on the ECU mount tray. So we'll pop that guy out of there, and then this bracket, you know, we've had a lot of 3D printed brackets on here I've been talking about. This one is anodized aluminum. Check that out. It's very nice. It feels quality, especially when, you know, 3D printed parts are cool, but that feels quality. Anyway, that's gonna turn and just drop right in here. Give me 2 seconds. All right, that's the power steering relocate bracket right there. A bunch of bolts are going back in, and it includes 2 new bolts here. So I'm gonna figure out which one's gonna go where. Oh, well, obviously the one with the shank right here. That one is gonna go through, it's the longer bolt for that, into the ECU mount there. And then the power steering hose here has to come off. We're gonna pop that off, and we're gonna put it underneath the battery cable, and it's gonna go all the way down to a new P clamp underneath everything here. So that's gonna get pushed way down and way out of the way to open up all this here. And then that's the clamp right there. It's gonna reattach the power steering line. So I'm gonna put all this together right now, and we should be basically done with our power steering relocate. The power steering reservoir has been relocated. You can see it's moved way over, honestly. Like an 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 right there. So that puts a lot of room over here. And of course the power steering line has been put down much farther as well. And it also has the P-clamp down here holding it nice and cleanly. And you're supposed to clearance this too to make sure it's not touching the timing cover. I would say it's not touching the timing cover. It has just a light, just a paper's thin amount between the two. I did just a hair of bending right there. So hopefully that's good to go. Now, let's get the intercooler on this thing. It's time to make it look cool. All right, don't call me Shirley, but I'm pretty sure that this is the intercooler bracket and it mounts right there. It looks like it sits right underneath that little flanged piece of metal, sheet metal from the factory. And it's almost like they built this thing to be turboed. I don't know if Flyin Miata just found magical mounts or something like that, but it's kind of like they built this car from the factory thinking it might get a turbo. So it looks like you have to reach behind this and put nuts in there because those aren't nut certs or welded on nuts or anything. Yep, none of the holes are. So we are going to have to get all this bolted on and then bolt the intercooler to those holes on the top. Woo! One intercooler mounted and it looks very, very good. You can see the bracket right up there, and we are gonna leave the caps on until we're dropping the lines in place because there's still a lot of dirt hanging around on this thing. I mean, it is a used car, as they all are, but they do say to only install the bottom 2 bolts here. I didn't love the bottom 2 bolts. They supply the extra ones in case you want to go the extra mile. And to go the extra mile, you have to remove these brackets here from the condenser. So I went ahead and pulled those off, and then you have to feed the nut in with a tiny, tiny screwdriver and then hold it up against the back to get it started. And it's a lot of work, but you can get it done if you want to have all 4 bolts hold the intercooler on. So we did do that. And then the condenser is all put back together and the intercooler's mounted, and it's time to move on to piping it. And we are back to the 3D printed parts over here on the passenger side of the car. This is pretty cool. They give you a template to drill this hole here. So you mount this on the headlight bolt, and the other hole goes right in an existing hole. And then you just mark this with a Sharpie, pull this bracket back off, and then cut all of these little plastic tabs so you can get this Y out of here, because the hose does pass through there to create your grommet. So now I'm gonna go ahead and punch this hole with the 3-inch hole saw, and then we'll put this back on right after that. Hole drilled. Now I'm starting to think we might be in trouble here. This is an aftermarket coolant reservoir, and it's very nice, and I'm very much hoping we can use it. But first of all, we have that hose in the way from the radiator right there, which we can probably get around that. That's not the end of the world. You see that black hose right through the hole there. Also, 3-inch hole saw, be careful. It's very grabby, obviously, so, you know, I like to turn the clutch on, get a lot of speed, and then just barely push on the hole saw so that you get through it. I got through it and then cleaned all that up with a paint pen, and I'm ready to install the bushing that the hose goes through, but like I said, I'm a little worried about that Moroso coolant reservoir clearance there, because I bet the factory one's probably just not as deep, and therefore the hose can go probably that way. But we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna just try to get the hose through the hole there and see what happens. Luckily it's on the charge side, so it shouldn't be collapsing. We've all been there with silicone hoses, right? You make so much boost that you collapse the intake side, and then you're like, why is it not making any horsepower? And you can't figure it out. The diagnostics don't tell you anything. And then you throw a camera under the hood and you see that when you're in full boost, the silicone coupler's like, on the intake side, obviously. The charge side, luckily, likes to hold itself open. But if this does rub, the coolant reservoir is gonna have to get changed. We are plumbing some air. So here is our charge pipe over to the intercooler right here. I'm pretty excited about that. You don't hook it on quite yet because you have to move this around a little bit more. I did just notice a little fleck of dirt in there that I kind of want to find a way to get out. We'll see. Maybe I can just point it down and blow it out. But then this is headed over to the intercooler. We're about to put that line on and clamp it. I have the elbow on the throttle body clamped down, the MAF housing right here, which is very cool. It's like laser engraved. And you move your MAF over, you unbolt it with the Phillips screws, and then point the MAF this way. This notch right here lines up with this arrow because it wants to make sure the air is passing as well as possible over the MAF. And then also you'll want to lubricate that O-ring in there with some grease. It didn't really want to go in, so I didn't force it. Greased it, fell right in. 3mm Allen on those bolts right there. Tighten everything up, and you are ready to install the last piece of charge pipe, which is this elbow right here. So I'm going to do that one right now, and it has a big piece of plastic 3D printed that fills in that giant hole and kind of centers the pipe. So with that said, we are attaching basically everything. After this, I think we put in the battery box, and then we put on the air filter and like vacuum hose. That's basically it. We're down to the last couple items and it's gonna start. Quick stop at O'Reilly's for supplies, and the only supply we need today is super glue, which is, you know, a lot of times I wouldn't get it here, but O'Reilly's is the closest place, so let's run in here and grab it. Plus I'm working on a car, right? We need car super glue. Boom. I thought it said fast driving super glue. I was like, that's the one. All right, guys, we are out of here with two options to get this thing done. We've got the brush kind and we've got the micro precise. All right, here's the deal, guys. I like all these 3D printed brackets, but there's a bit of a problem. As soon as you move this hose at all out of the, you know, the charge line from the turbo into the intercooler here, this snaps apart. So yeah, it's a nice 3D printed part, but it doesn't really hold up. There's nothing that keeps it together if the hose slides in and out. And also, if you have to change the headlight, it's gonna be an issue as well. It's gonna come apart. So I'm gonna super glue this bracket together now that I got it snapped back together, which took a good 5 minutes of like just fighting for my life. I even had to drop the coolant reservoir off of there just so I had clearance to get my hand in there. So it was a really big fight. We are gonna pour super glue around the ring where it snapped together and then use the brush to hit the top as well, because this does not need to come apart and neither does that one. Those need to stay together. And look at that. It looks like that one broke apart too. So over here the tabs are in and over here the tabs are not. So I'm gonna glue both of these things into place. You can still service it just fine without ever taking these back out. This is the most super glue I've ever used in my life. You can see there's a full bead all the way around both of these now. So much super glue went into those. But I tried to keep it off the hoses completely and now it's drying and we'll be ready to install this air cover that goes right here. So we've got the air dam back in over the intercooler here, and at this point we're just doing a bunch of little stuff. I know it looks like a lot got done, but basically you put one bolt here after you put the air box in, and one bolt here so the AC line has somewhere to stay mounted, and then the factory clip goes back in this hole here for the wiring harness, and then you literally just throw this guy on, and that's all I did. It looks like I did a lot of work because it's complete, but literally just a few things. So this hose is zip tied on and about ready to be routed here, the steam port. And now you take that stock PCV hose and you literally just cut it up with a razor blade. So you can see I made a tiny little incision right there. Do that on a workbench because there's a good chance you'll cut the fitting or cut you, and you don't want to do either of those. So do that very carefully. Throw this guy on here like that. And then I guess this is scary because you can't go back from this one, that's for sure. I guess you could do a coupler, but now we have to install that hose right there. So I gotta cut this, and I mean, that's a heck of a hose. It is as custom as they come. So I'm gonna do that right now, and then put in the blow-off valve right there. And we have the two vacuum hoses left, this one and the blow-off valve, and that's it. It's ready to start. We're gonna fill with fluids. So here in just a few minutes, we will be filling this thing up with oil and tuning it. Oh, the quality parts, all right, guys. BOV Compact Plum, 34 millimeter. It says back. I feel like it should have said black because it is the black one, right? And it comes with its own clamps. Fancy. All right. Now we're gonna point, oh, I think they gave us nice clamps. I think Flyin Miata gave us really good clamps that we should use instead, these spring loaded ones. And once you clamp down on these, they don't back off. And these probably don't either, right? I mean, I think AMS mostly uses these, you know. They wrote that PDF on how these are better than everything else in the game. I don't subscribe to that at all, but this is a clamp. And this might be the best clamp in the world. I wouldn't doubt that these are like $10 each. Because once you get like compression, the springs, you know, keep tension on that forever, and it's got a locking function with the springs, and it just makes sure it can't loosen up, which is really, really cool. So let me see, I think there's one more of these, and there's nothing else on the car that needs them, so it's gotta be that. It sure is. So this guy's gonna sneak in here. Ooh, that's actually pretty hard to route. Yeah, that should work. I think I can tighten that up. And then this one we'll put over here. They'll ride on top of each other, I think, but kind of how it's got to be. All right, so now this is going to be pretty hard, I think. Oh, just kidding. Way easier than I expected. You guys know the saying, It's in the background of all Rich's videos. We do this not because it's easy, but because we thought it would be easy, which is a great motto for life. It really is. She's seated. She is seated. All right, I'm gonna tighten down these clamps, hook up the vacuum line, and let's party. And after another day, it's time for the very last connection on the turbo kit here. So you can see we got all of the steam hose routed, clamped on, all of that fun stuff. This is on my down the road list here, but I'm gonna re-pull that fuel pump fuse and put it right there. But now we have the vacuum line that goes to the wastegate there and the blow off valve here. And that's all routed. So we're gonna finish up just the last little bit of that routing there by putting it under the fuel line. There it goes. Finally rolled where I wanted it. And we wanna make sure that's truly chilling and it's not gonna get rubbed through. And then we're gonna cut this guy right here. You know what cuts vacuum hoses really well? Just normal cheap scissors. Really, really well. And now, put that on the T, and that is the vacuum routing. Look at that. The washer relocation is here, but we're gonna do that after we start it up so we can leak check the whole car. So, I have the tuning cable right here. I'm gonna go get my laptop, download the software for this thing, OBD Link SX, VersaTuner. And once I get everything downloaded, we'll go ahead and flash the ECU, and then we'll fill it up with oil, coolant, and crank it. So I will be back to you guys here in just a second as we're flashing the tune and filling the fluids for the first time. We're so close to starting this thing up. And since that's true, go ahead and get everything out of the engine bay. The time has come to finally tune this car so we can go and do our first startup. And I can't wait to actually start it, but there's a couple more minutes with the tuning software. First, you have to download VersaTuner. They include a license key. You go create an account, download the software, then you need to update the firmware on the cable. We've got the cable firmware updated, plugged into the car, and we're gonna turn the ignition on right now. And Flyin Miata provides a single tune. And it's locked, you can't modify it because this is an EPA and CARB compliant turbo kit. So you of course could reflash it down the road, but...
It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids.
Good. I'm glad it doesn't matter if I'm at work or in my car. Anyway, they include a single tune, and the only thing you can do is flash the Flyin Miata EPA and CARB compliant tune to the car. They said this was developed like an OE tune and it will pass emissions, which is wild. So if you're worried, you're in California or somewhere with smog, this car passes. Like I said, I mentioned it before while we were doing the cat, but we are, VersaTuner needs to be installed on the car before you can flash any tunes, and this may take 30 to 60 minutes. You will not be able to use your car during that time. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so everything is off, the lights are off. Next, and next, turn the ignition key to on. Backing up stock tune. It says 5 minutes. I hope it doesn't take 30 to 60 minutes. That would be wild. But like I said, OE level calibration, and we don't expect this to hurt reliability at all, right? I mean, this should be pretty cool. And when I wanted the old Flyin Miata turbo kit, the Hydra, if I remember right, you had to do a piggyback, or maybe it was a clamp on the MAF or something like that. And it was in the olden days, right? Before anybody really cared about the emissions, because those cars were like 94, you know, well, all the first gen Miatas, right? NAs. And I always wanted to do the turbo kit. And I think it was quite a bit like simpler, but at the same time it was a piggyback or a clamp on the MAF, and I hate that too. I always wanted to be able to tune it on my laptop, and I don't think you can tune the old Miata ECU with any kind of external laptop. Maybe, but I don't think you can. This thing, we just plug in the USB cable to the OBD2 port right there. Kit comes with the cable too, and it's OBD Link SX, so you have the software for that, and then you just hit install VersaTuner. That's it. Look at that, Gen 3 Mazda Miata MX-5. I've never used VersaTuner before, but I love the way this looks and how easy it is to use. You know, I use HP tuners all the time, but it is not, like, it doesn't make any sense. You have to know how to use HP tuners. This looks like you just jump in and use it, which is pretty cool. VersaTuner's flashing the car right now, right? 2 more minutes, which is cool. That means it's taken about 5 minutes total. But then I start scrolling here, and everyone knows that I'm building this at this point. You know, I'm tweeting about it and posting all these videos. And the Smoking Tire just posted the exact same kit on the same Club Sport. I actually don't know how they got this already though. I kind of assume that's Flyin Miata's demo mule, because I did know it's like someone else has it, but how on earth would they have gotten it done so quickly? Just came out. So maybe Flyin Miata has a demo car down in California for Matt and them to play with. Anyway, 37 more seconds, 36 more seconds, and we're ready to flash the tune. Oh, well, it's on the base tune. I think we're just ready after this. I'll let you guys know how it works out here in just a moment, but I'm gonna go fill the coolant and fill the oil, and we're gonna start it. So after you run install VersaTuner, which took about 4 minutes on this thing, it was honestly no big deal at all. You can see that we are now installing Flyin Miata NC2 and 3 Miata Turbo Kit carb pending tune. And yeah, it says carb certified, check. Anyway, now it's flashing the tune. It's gonna take 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and the ECU is ready to go. Also guys, I absolutely hate the difference in the two traction control lights. Like, one of them shows a squished car, which I think they were like, oh, it looks like a Miata. And the other one shows, you know, the federally compliant car. How did this happen? How did this happen? Count it down with me. 4, 3, 2, 1. And you can hear it restart. And then it'll probably say turn the key off and turn it back on. Okay, key backwards. 1, 2, 3. Back on. And then it automatically clears all of the codes. And it should say you're ready to go. Hey! Has been successfully flashed. Drive the car lightly for 20 miles. It is time. They want you to properly bleed the cooling system, but we're not gonna do that because we've got the old UView 2000, 200, whatever it is. It's literally my favorite thing to see. It held vacuum for a very long time, so I was very happy. You know, I used to always throw all this in a 5-gallon bucket and do the, make sure I never had any air at all, but that little bit of air ends up in the expansion tank, so there's like nothing to worry about there. Okay? Like, how much air is in that hose, really? Nothing. Oh, my bad. I spilled it all over my floor. Now there's some air in the hose. Back to it. I think 2 gallons gets it done. And we're almost ready. I already filled the oil up too. So oil has been filled and checked, and as soon as this thing calls it quits, or even right now, honestly, we can go ahead and start doing our oil pump primes, and then we'll put the fuel pump fuse in and start it for the very first time. I'm pretty sure she's tapped. I'll see if it'll even go into the... Nope, she's full. We're gonna watch that to see if it starts leaking. It might. I don't think it will, but it might. And where did the keys go for this thing? Are they in the ignition? We're just gonna hope it doesn't leak though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Here we go again. Weird, we don't have oil pressure yet. I do think this is a dummy oil pressure gauge though. It just is so often. But you would think that even a dummy oil pressure would be like, yeah, you've got oil pressure on crank. Let's start it. So the fuse is going in for the fuel pump, and it should run. Turbo Miata, let's go! Fuel pump fuse is in. We'll let it prime. But it sounds like it primed instantly. There's pump again. And again. Hope our fuel rail's nice and full. Let's go. That is too good. It's truly a modern car. It was perfect. All right, let's go look around. First things first, is it leaking here? I don't see it. I should have left this cover off so we could look for fuel rail leaks. Let me get a light in there. It's a little stuttery right there. I don't love the stuttering. don't see any fuel. I don't see any fuel. Power steering fluid looks like it's doing okay. That's good, that's good. What if we just go drive it, guys? What if we don't put the hood back on? This seems like a real just go drive it kind of event. I know I have to move everything in the shop, but all right, we'll put more of it back together, but it seems like it's perfect. It seems like it's perfect, and I'm so excited. I don't see the power steering leaking either. Flyin Miata was adamant that it could leak power steering fluid if you clock this hose. And I did clock the hose because I didn't want all the stress pushing over on this thing. Woo-hoo! It's so quiet. I don't think there's any exhaust leaks. Let's give it a rev. See, it has to have an oil pressure sensor, right? Like a good one. I don't know. Huh, that was an interesting. Figure out your idle recovery. It needs driven. Let's put more of this car back together, get it out on the road, and let it learn all of its adaptations, because it probably will fix that idle recovery. What if I AC on? Okay, this is way better. If you're ever having idle recovery issues, just let idle kick fix them for you. Something I've learned many times. AC totally changes that idle recovery. Anyway, I think it's great. I don't see any leaks. Let's look underneath it. Nothing on the floor, and then we'll come in here. Let's look around. Don't see anything dripping down. I thought I sprayed that off with brake clean. I need to double check that fitting right there. It might be leaking just a hair from the AN fitting. Not from anywhere else, but I'll spray some brake clean on there and see if that looks like it's weeping. Check our oil housing. Everything looks beautiful over there. Cool, cool. All right. All good news so far. I figured it was time to get moving, so I very quickly put the lower cowl back on, the upper cowl back on, and all the lines are bolted back down in place, and the beginning of the strut tower braces is going on as well. Also, I didn't mention it earlier, but there is a Flyin Miata 3D printed block-off plate for the sound tube, which looks very cool. And I don't know if I should have mentioned it, but the one that's in there says Flyin Miata Yacht Club on it, which is pretty cool too. Now, this is the best thing I've ever seen in any kit, because obviously we're trying to get everything reassembled pretty quickly here, and then I was like, well, what's left over here? And what's left over here is pretty simple. The carb decal that goes under the hood, a new washer fluid cap they 3D printed that doesn't have a hinge on it, so it fits better. Most of this, the washer relocate kit, obviously, we're gonna put that on after we drive it, check for leaks, the turbo blanket, obviously, and we need to get this guy on the fuel tank. I don't know what this is. I never even saw anything that mentioned this 3D printed part. So, good question. But this is the last thing that was over here, and why I wanted to bring you guys over. Maybe the best thing I've ever seen from anyone to include in a kit. It's these, and they were both broken. I was like, well, you know, that one was not even there when I started, and this one had a broken tab, but I was like, it'll sit. Flyin Miata included new ones from Mazda. Wow, the thoughtfulness right there, just knowing these are always going to break. So there's like some weather strip in there. I'm gonna open these up, pop them in place, and then it's time. Well, I wanted to put the wipers on too, but speaking of attention to detail, I wanna go to O'Reilly's and buy duplicolor trim paint and paint the wiper arms, because it's not my car, but it always looks so much better. It looks like a new car if you paint the wipers. And we're back to O'Reilly's 2 minutes before close to buy some duplicolor trim paint. Haha, I beat you to closing. I just need one thing.
All right, bud.
All right, thanks guys.
Later, bud.
Saved my life at the last second. Later. All right, guys, second O'Reilly's trip of the day. And of course, like I showed you, we got there seconds before closing, and we got our trim paint. We also have stuff for the tech channel, Harmony 520 right there. Went to a garage sale, but that's staying in there for now. Okay, I've got the wiper arms all prepped. They just got wiped down with brake clean, and they are as fresh as they're ever going to be. And we've got zip ties on there that we're gonna use to hook them on something so they can go dry outside. And of course, duplicolor trim and bumper paint. This is one of my favorite paints in the world. Everything I use it on comes out perfectly. And shake the can for 2 minutes, 10 seconds after for each minute, and make sure it's warm enough. 10 minutes between coats. Yeah. Perfect. It dries super fast and it looks incredible. And no matter what you're doing with it, it will probably come out very well. Our wiper arms are drying right now. I just shot them real quick. It's nighttime, so I think they look perfect, but I couldn't really tell. And while those are drying, let's move on to another important step, and that is applying that sticker right there. So the Miata already says premium fuel recommended, but now it's going to say premium fuel required. And I did already clean all of that with brake clean. Weirdly, whatever's on there won't come off, but this sticker is gonna stick, I can tell you that. We'll just finish up our application here. Go ahead and pull the backer. I left the factory sticker under it and used it to kind of align this too, because if the factory sticker is not coming off, neither is this one. All right. We can't leave out the fun stuff. Premium fuel is required now. And of course, once I get the front bumper back on, we'll install our last sticker here. So with that said, I am quitting for the day. Like I said, it's nighttime. I'm gonna let those dry. I might recoat them tonight, we'll see. Because I've got a little paint booth set up outside right now. But that's pretty much all that's left here is just little, reassembly items like the front bumper and the under trays, and of course, throwing the hood back on. The car runs, and as soon as the front bumper's on, we're gonna take it out for its first drive just to double check that there's no leaks. I wanna get back under it again and check that AN fitting on the oil return, make sure that's not dripping either. There's just a lot of things that I wanna check over, and I wanna do it tomorrow after I take it all for a drive. And I found out I have until 4 p.m. tomorrow. We aren't that close to the deadline yet. I thought I was gonna have to be ready to go in the morning, but instead we have the rest of the day, which is amazing. So tomorrow we take this thing out for its first drive, but today it is finished and running and just ready for the body panels to be bolted back on. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop WatchJRGo.com for cool shirts just like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time. It looks really good too, right? I mean, this looks about as OEM as it comes. If it didn't have a big laser engraved logo, which I love, by the way, it would be OEM. That is a very, very clean install. But tomorrow's the day we get to take this thing out for a drive, and I guess I have to put like 40 miles on it before we even do a draggy pull, really. So hopefully I can go drive it around for an hour.